Hey guys, Argent here, with my thoughts on the Game of Thrones series finale, The Winds of Winter. No, you didn't hear me wrong, it was the series finale, and we'll get into that in a minute. Now, I don't normally make these videos, not because I don't have something to say, I just don't want to do clickbait. My channel admittedly is a bit niche, and while I kind of do want to reach out a bit with it, I don't want to like go viral or something overnight and have a ton of people trying to dox me. Also, I kind of want the content on my channel to kind of reflect what my channel's about. So like the Dark Side Phil video, I put a lot of politics into, because that's what I do. So, I'm just doing this because I do have a lot to say that's kind of political about it, and because it just pissed me off so much. So, I read the Game of Thrones books back before I watched the show. I think I got through Storm of Swords when I started watching the show. I got to A Dance with Dragons, which I found to be completely unreadable. I got about a third of the way through and tossed it aside disgust. And I've been watching the show. I haven't watched the current season. I've watched up to the current season. I really just don't have much of a taste for it anymore, and I'll go into that in a second. And this episode, to me, kind of summarized everything about what I just kind of dislike about the show now and why I just don't really give a damn anymore. So without further ado, let's go into it. What were my big issues with the episode? Well, it's kind of an issue with the entire tone of the show. I kind of feel a couple seasons ago they lost track of the actual plot and just turned it into girl power, rah feminism. Decisions in this show seem to be more made for the purposes of white knighting for Cersei and Daenerys than really serving the plot anymore. We see the male characters becoming increasingly impotent and incapable of doing anything throughout the series, and instead women step up, and now that the world's run by women, everything's going to work out. Except everything's kind of complete shit now, and they're just, because women lead to peace, we're going to start a whole bunch of wars. I mean, think about it. Dorne is now run by women, which didn't happen in the books, and wasn't implicitly going to happen in the books at all. Well, I guess Ariana was going to maybe become queen, but she was kind of on the side of Durant. Whatever. Alanna is now the head of House Tyrell, which makes no sense because she's not a Tyrell by blood. And theoretically, one of the branch members would have become head, the next male, but that doesn't matter. Logic doesn't count because of girl power. We have Cersei now. We have Sansa, I guess, although Jon was made king in the north. And we have Daenerys. And Yura, a.k.a. Asha, of course. So we have all this girl power running the world, but things are still kind of complete shit. So why do I say that the episode was the end of the series? Well, because there's not much left to really explore or do in the show. Everything's pretty much resolved itself at this point. The only thing we really have left is who of the remaining characters is going to die and how are they going to beat the White Walkers, which I've never given a shit about. The White Walker plot is always been the worst aspect of Game of Thrones. If you've read the books, it's kind of a side trip. The action's all around King's Landing. It's all around the Game of Thrones, the battle for the Iron Throne. That's where most of the characters are. That's where most of the interesting characters are. Cersei, Jaime, Tywin, Tyrion, Ned. Kind of like most of the more interesting Sansa are all kind of congregated around King's Landing and kind of the war in the south. If we're talking about the north, we're stuck with Jon Snow, who just whines all the time. Sam, who's incredibly obnoxious. And I guess Stannis was there for a little while. And Davos was there for a little while, I guess. But they barely kind of count in my view because they weren't there for that long. So, okay. So we have these things that are north of the wall. We don't really know much about them. We just know they're evil and they're going to destroy the world. Do we really know much about them? No. Is there any real reason to care? Not really. It's a bit like the threat of nuclear weapons during the Cold War. It's omnipresent, but it's so far removed and so vague, it just doesn't really do much. And this is a lot more less dramatic than that because the nuclear weapons would have destroyed the world in an instant. In which case, we might have the White Walkers destroy parts of Westeros, maybe because the southern half of the continent won't turn to ice, so they can't go that far south, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just like, why should I care about the White Walkers? It feels like some kind of like George R. R. Martin really wanted to have the others in this book series, and there was no real like reasonable way to put them in. He just wanted them in, so they just kind of shoehorned them in. And it's supposed to be the kind of like the central plot of the series, but it feels completely out of place in the show that's the central plot. So that's kind of the last thing, and that's why I don't care about it. So why do I say it's the series finale? Okay, well let's just deconstruct. Let's break this down a bit. For the last couple seasons, we've had a bunch of things building up. We've had Marjorie versus Cersei. We've had the High Sparrow. We've had Kevin Lannister. We've had the tensions with the Tyrells. We've had all this stuff. And they literally just blew it up. They killed half the main cast off in one episode. They removed all threats to Cersei's power. And by doing so, resolved most of the show's plots. Okay, so of the factions vying for the Iron Throne, there's now two left. There's Team Dany and there's Team Cersei. Or should I just say Cersei? Because Cersei's plan makes no sense. Okay, she killed Marjorie Tyrell. She ruined that alliance. She's permanently ruined any chance of an alliance with Dorne. Tommen is dead. So all she really controls at the moment is the Crown Lands and the Westerlands. And I think it should be pointed out she has no legitimate claim to the throne. No one will recognize her as legitimate queen. She has no blood claim. I don't actually know who the throne should go to. They should probably elect a new king because the line's completely dead at this point. There's no Targaryens left and there's no Lannisters left. I guess actually Tyrion might even. I don't know. There's no male to inherit the throne. So she has absolutely no claim to it whatsoever. She's just declared herself to be queen. And people say, well, maybe she has the Stormlands. Well, the Stormlands belong to House Baratheon, and they had largely sided with Stannis. And now that Stannis the Manus is dead, they're in complete disarray and they aren't siding with anyone. And their military resources were completely exhausted as most of them went north to fight with Stannis or died on the Blackwater. So Cersei's left with the Crown Lands, which were completely devastated by multiple armies during the war, and the Westerlands. Now, Lannisters have done the vast majority of the fighting throughout this war. They were probably the second or first, depending on how you want to count quality versus quantity, most militarily powerful house in the Seven Kingdoms. But they were left basically fighting the Starks and Tullys by themselves for a period of several years. The Tullys are not particularly competent, but they can raise a number of men. They are a Lord Paramount. And the Starks have quite tough soldiers, and they lost a lot of battles. So the Lannisters have borne the overwhelming brunt of the fighting. They've had to fight them, they've had to fight Stannis, they've had to do all sorts of different things, and they've just taken blow after blow after blow. And by this point in time, the only allies they have left are the Freys, but the Freys have also lost a significant number of their troops fighting on Robb Stark's side and fighting on the Lannister side. The Lannisters are basically a great house that holds one depleted Seven Kingdom member. Now, if this was the book Lannisters and they still had their money, they could just hire some mercenaries from across the Narrow Sea and continue the war. But at this point in time, they're completely broke. They have no manpower left. I think they said Jaime was down to like 8,000 guys. So Cersei has no army, no money, and no claim to the throne. How long do you think this civil war is going to last? I mean, the Tyrells, I believe, have the vast majority of their troops. They didn't really lose many in the war. They fought one or two minor battles. They have all 70 or 80,000 guys they can raise. Dorne has not participated in any battles. They have another 20, 30,000 that they can raise. And they're both siding with Daenerys, who has, 10,000 unsullied, a couple, maybe like 20,000 more Dothraki, maybe like 10,000 other soldiers, plus part of the Iron Fleet. So Daenerys probably has an army of like 160,000 soldiers, plus dragons, plus a fleet, versus Cersei's 8,000 people. I mean, it's a joke. It's not even going to be a battle. They're just going to show up and win. It's laughable. So that plot line, as far as I'm concerned, is resolved. I guess the only thing is, how is Cersei going to die? Is Daenerys going to feed her to her dragon? Or is she going to get killed by Jaime? Who really cares, though? It's like, it doesn't matter. Most of the sympathetic characters or interesting characters are gone. The High Sparrow was actually my favorite character. He's dead now in a fucking lame cop-out death. I think really what kind of happened was they're like, oh, we haven't had any plot progression for the last 2 seasons. Because we've been filling it up with fucking Dorne scenes, fucking, like, Bravo shit scenes, and, like, Dany just kind of being a whore. So we need to, like, resolve all these plots, so let's just blow everything up. And have Cersei make herself queen, because girl power. And that's kind of how I felt it was. It didn't feel like she was some lunatic who was lashing out at the people against her. It felt to me like the show creators were going, oh boy, this is so good. It's a woman taking revenge at the men who wronged her. Like Marjorie Tyrell and the High Sparrow. The High Sparrow is evil because he's a white male and he's religious. And he shamed Cersei. Well, Cersei was a whore who had bastards born of incest, who raised a literal sadistic psychopath to be king, who killed the old king, who had just all kinds of shit that she was involved with. But that's wrong. That's okay. That's girl power. Daenerys destroying entire civilizations is also girl power. It's all good. And like, what is Daenerys gonna do when she gets to Westeros? She's gonna unleash her fucking dragons in the Dothraki. They're gonna come to Westeros. She's gonna burn all the cities to the ground. She's gonna have the Dothraki, who are literally the worst people on earth, are just going to rape and pillage what's left of the land. The kingdoms in the south, which haven't been that badly destroyed, they're just going to get ravaged. I know they're on her side, but Dothraki are fucking monsters. So they're just going to go in and rape and pillage and conquer the 7 kingdoms because Dany wants to rule the 7 kingdoms. Because of reasons. There's no reason for her to want to rule them other than the fact that she has a claim to them. She's never been there. She doesn't know anything about them. She's not Faith of the 7. She has no connection whatsoever to the 7 kingdoms, other than the fact she happens to have a claim to it. Big fucking deal. Why are we supposed to sympathize with her? She's a lunatic. She's incapable of doing anything. People just, like, she basically has men around her who do everything for her, and she just throws hissy fits and feeds people to dragons. I can't take it. So we have that. That's what's left. We have 2 insane women, neither of which is sympathetic, who are fighting in a battle that is predetermined. We already know how it's going to end. There's not a lot of other variables in play. The last kind of variable in play is Littlefinger, but he's basically been cucked, and because he's a man, he's been reduced to, I guess, kind of like Sansa controls him now or something. And Sansa's another character they ruined because she was kind of like supposed to be the person, and this is her role in the books, the kind of the normal person, the kind of the voice of the viewer, the person who is jaded but is still kind of innocent to a certain extent and is still kind of like a decent person. So she's just kind of become another generic jaded character. That's great. Her being raped kind of ruined her entire character arc. That's great, though, because now her and Jon are controlling the North. and they're going to control the North and do something. I don't know if they're going to go south and invade King's Landing. I don't know if they're going to go fight the White Walkers. But I just don't give a shit anymore. Like, everybody's dead. All the people who are left have either been ruined through bad character development, aka Sansa, or are completely unsympathetic and unlikable, aka Daenerys, aka the Sand Snakes, aka Cersei. So that's what's left. They literally blew up all the show's remaining tension. It's over. There's like one or two questions left, but it's the end. That's my thoughts on the matter. This is Argent. Talk to you guys later.